Hi, my name is Shreya and I'm an intern at Info. This week's article is titled GSP and the India-US Trade Relationships. Before we get into what it actually is, let us know what the Generalized System of Preferences is. The Generalized System of Preferences is a preferential trade agreement between two nations in which one nation is a developed or advanced nation and the other one is a developing country. What essentially happens in such a preferential trade agreement is that it lists a certain number of commodities from these exporting underdeveloped countries which are to be exported to the advanced economies free of tariff. That is, when the advanced economies take in all these resources and all these commodities from the underdeveloped countries, they essentially do not charge any tariff. What this does is it makes these commodities cheaper in the advanced economies, which increases their demand, and hence the underdeveloped and the developing economies can thus be more encouraged to trade with these advanced economies. This is important because whenever these underdeveloped and developing economies have to trade with the advanced economies, they have to technically face a lot of hurdles, those being that of quality or of demand, because these advanced economies obviously have better resources to manufacture anything that they want. But when tariffs are removed, that lowers their price, which encourages buyers in the markets of the advanced economies to demand more of these commodities. This helps these backward economies to actually grow. Now, what's important here is to understand how the system generally works. So, it is an obligation of sorts for every advanced economy to have a generalized system of preferences list, which is a list of all those countries that fall under the category of no tariff trade. One important thing to understand here is not all commodities from these developing economies are available free of tariff. There are only a certain number of commodities that are listed, and only these are available free of tariff. Along with the advantages that the developing economies have because of this GSP, the developed economies themselves also have a lot of such advantages. One being the developed economies have unidirectional access to all these markets in the developing economies. And when they have access to markets, they can as well put in their commodities in these economies. The second is it creates a lot of jobs in these advanced countries because all these commodities that are being imported have to also be given to the manufacturers as raw materials, to the consumers as final goods, and for that a lot of middlemen get jobs when they transfer the commodities. It also increases competition, which increases the quality of goods in the advanced economy markets. We are talking about the context of India-US trade relations in the GSP is because recently India has been removed from the US GSP list. India has been a beneficiary of the US GSP list for a very long time since the inception of this list. But recently, the Trump administration has scrapped India off the benefit. Why is that? It is because they suspect that India is hindering the US access to the Indian markets. A, by increasing the cost of medical implements, instruments that are being imported from the US, such as stents. Second, by their tax on information and communication technology items that are being implemented. And also third, India has lately refused to import milk or dairy products that are fed from cattle, which are not fed pastures that have internal organs because of religious reasons, of course. Because of all these reasons, the US economy feels that they have been given a lack of access to the Indian markets, and because of that, US is also trying to restrict the Indian access to the US markets. Now, the thing that has to be noted here is this impacts certain sectors of the Indian market, but not all the sectors. The leather goods are the ones that we manufacture and we export to the US. The jewelry is another sector that will be affected, but then again, not all sectors. The impact of India's removal from GST might not actually be there on the entire Indian market in general, but it is surely going to affect certain significant sectors of the Indian market. Now, these manufacturers of these significant sectors that are affected can bear 2 to 3% of the loss in cost, but not more than that, which is why it is very important for the Indian government to be able to do something about it. What can the government do? The first and the most important thing that the government can do is to talk. Bilateral talks between India and the US are surely going to benefit because this might actually open up India as a beneficiary of the GSP again. The second thing, all sectors that are being affected by the GSP can be subsidized by the government. This will reduce the cost of production, which will still make it easier for these manufacturers to manufacture these goods and send it. The third thing that the government can do is to effectively encourage the production of all these products by any certain other method that will also in turn reduce the cost. This does not just affect the Indian markets but also affects the US market as well. GSP is a source through which a lot of raw materials are available cheaply for all the US markets for manufacturing their own goods. If the GSP is removed, these in the Indian raw materials that are exported to the US are going to be available to the US merchants at a higher price, which means the price of US goods is going to increase in their domestic market as well, which will again lead to inflationary trends in the US economy. The second thing that will happen, which might be called as a positive effect, is that when Indian goods are restricted from entering the US market, the US manufacturers might actually start producing the goods themselves, and that might actually increase the participation of US merchants into their market. These are the pros and cons of the list that we have created. Now we only have to wait and watch what the US and the Indian government have to say about this. To know more about this article, please log on to Indian Folk and read my article. Thank you.